Thank you. Dr. Ferguson.
Thanks, Chairman Smith, and thanks to each of you for being here. I want you to think about time in our nation's history when we actually had universities that would discriminate against African Americans on admissions policies. How horrible do we think that that was and is and should never happen again? And I'll take you back to the case of the United States versus Bob Jones University, where because of their racially discriminatory policies, their tax-exempt status was removed. And in studying the case, and keep in mind, I'm a dentist playing lawyer up here, so you'll have to excuse my very simplistic method here. But it seems that we're in very similar territory right now, where you have universities that are clearly violating the civil rights of its students. And Honorable Marcus, could you weigh in on, do you think that there's similarities in the violation of student civil rights today that is like what happened with Bob Jones University? And do you think that that should be reason for the IRS to revoke the tax-exempt status of these universities that continue to violate the civil rights of their students?
Congressman Ferguson, you have raised an important issue. I don't think we need to compare the discrimination that Jewish students face to those of African Americans to realize that there is a problem, and a problem that's not being taken seriously enough. Universities are responding to OCR investigations. They are responding to lawsuits. However, most universities are virtually addicted to federal funding and tax exemption. If any university was seriously threatened with either one of them, it would create a massive change within both that university and also its peers around the country. Right now, we don't have that sort of incentive effect. We don't have the sort of action that you described with respect to Bob Jones University. But if we had that sort of forcefulness, it would get a very different sort of reaction than what we've been seeing.
So, look, I'm pragmatic and I'm a political realist. And we could go through the process of writing legislation and passing laws. I don't know that how many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would move to advance this, particularly in the U.S. Senate. And I have really no hope that the current administration would sign it into law, much less enforce it. However, there is precedent to do this administratively with the IRS. And it seems to me that a very similar type of environment exists here. And I'm just wondering when student groups or different advocacy groups would actually look at suing these universities to have their tax-exempt status removed for violation of the Civil Rights Act. In addition to that, not only should the IRS look at it administratively following their guidelines from previous cases, but I think they should even think about introducing not only removing the tax-exempt status, but possibly a financial penalty as well. If these schools are going to receive federal funds, and if they don't do that, there should be some sort of clawback or even some sort of penalty. Professor, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I really appreciate your pragmatism. Like you, I don't like big ideas that are not rooted in reality. So I would say the most pragmatic thing is for Americans to understand what they are funding, right? We talk about universities as this broad thing.
Professor, I think this committee and our chairman have done a great job of really looking at that piece of it. But in the end, there's got to be a mechanism or a lever that can be pulled that has a profound effect on their behavior. And it seems to me, and Doctor, if you could weigh in on this very quickly, that removal of the tax-exempt status, as it has been, and that tool has been used in the past by the IRS, it seems like that would be a very effective tool and also a financial penalty for the violation of student rights and while they're receiving federal funds.
One
Professor,
thing.
Do you mind if I let Doctor?
Because I would just say, sorry, but one thing that I would say, once the university's budgets get hurt, This will be affecting the professor's budget. And once the professor's salaries and research budgets get hurt, they will upkeep the norms and push out the hateful professors from amidst them.
So, very quickly, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we respond?
Proceed quickly.
So my opinion is that only strong financial incentives will change behavior. One of the things we've observed in the last 8 months is that universities that don't have tremendous amounts of resources, they don't have this problem. And the reason they don't have this problem is because they don't have money to waste on highly ideological, divisive programs. They focus on educating. And so if we constrain the funding, universities will have to make choices, and some of them will redirect their resources to their educational mission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence.